Good evening, this is the Nerd is the Human, and welcome to this campaign strategy guide for Pontus in Rome Total War. We'll assess their starting location, potential expansion strategies, and their unique blend of being both an Eastern and Greek-style faction. We'll look at their armies and battlefield tactics in a separate guide, which will come out a couple weeks after this video. As ever, we like to consider the potential roleplay options for the faction, as well as discuss their history, both before the game's 270 BC start date and the eventual fate of the kingdom. Before we consider the best strategies, let's take in some historical context for the kingdom. As for much of the East, the post-Alexander Diadochi Wars are of key consideration. However, the game's region of Pontus was not actually fully conquered by Macedon. Post-Alexander, the Pontic king's capital was in Bithynia at the city of Saius. They were descendants of earlier Persian satraps in Asia Minor, and so the locals saw that they had more legitimacy than the Macedonians. This explains the more eastern feel of the faction. The Pontic kings would take advantage of the chaos in the Diadochi Wars in order to expand their territory. It was not without its troubles though, and they fled from Saius along the Black Sea coast, and at the time of the game beginning at 270 BC, their capital was Amasya, just south of the Greek city-state of Sinope. They control much of the game's Pontus region, but not actually Sinope itself. In time, Sinope would become a key city, which makes it a reasonable choice in terms of game design. Weirdly, in spite of controlling Cappadocia in-game, this was mostly a contested piece of land, and was not under Pontic control in 270 BC at all. But for game balance, they got this closely linked region. Of course, the Kingdom of Pontus isn't actually a playable faction on the base game. If you are playing Remastered, then that is no problem for you, but on the original, then you will need to do just a tiny bit of very simple modding. I'll put a little link to my video at the top there, and if you do want a little bit more flavour text, then there is a little bit of background for Pontus over here. It isn't too detailed, but if you want to learn more, then I do welcome people to add in the comments some of their favourite historical videos if people want to learn a little bit more about this fascinating faction.
The desert is ours. It is my home. Invaders come here, but they do not leave. They do not understand the desert. They do not understand how it gives life, or how it kills. So they die, and we grow stronger. The dead, now the dead, cannot pass on their newfound wisdom. So invaders keep coming, keep trying to take our lands and our wealth. But then wealth flows through this land. And if our people have one failing, it is the love of wealth. It is sweeter than water. It is more powerful than the sword. For any sword can be turned aside with a gold coin. Gold will buy 1,000 warriors. And 1,000 warriors, why, they are the start of an empire.
As we begin our campaign, you can see that the Pontics have a decent couple settlements here in northern modern-day Turkey, and it's a pretty darn good spot actually. If we take off the fog of war for a moment and take a little look around, we of course have Armenia to the east, who, to be honest, aren't going to pose too much of a threat in the first set of turns. They have a fair bit of distance to travel, they'll probably be distracted by Thraspar, and you really should be seeing them through the mountains when they inevitably do stab you in the back at some point in this game. You can go and attack them early on if that's what you want to do, but I would suggest that you do have some very nice rebel settlements here to the west that you might want to think about first. Now on that note, the one thing I would say is there's a fair chance that the Greeks and the Seleucids won't actually manage to take these, or certainly they very rarely do. So if you do decide to leave them and focus on Armenia first, you'll probably still be able to swing back and grab them, but to be honest, they are very little effort to take, so you might as well head over here and immediately get yourself up to 4 settlements. Before we get too deep into the strategy though, let's have a quick look at the 2 cities we do start with, because Sinope over here starts at 5,000 population with 3.5% population growth. Mazaka to the south has 2,400 and a population growth of 4%. That's pretty darn good. Now we will look at the building browser in more detail later, but certainly we want to be getting up to the cities pretty darn quick. We get some very nice units out of those indeed. So with those growing pretty darn quickly and some brand new expansions to the west, we now want to think about what strategy is really going to make the most sense and what units do we actually have to do it. I've taken the liberty of moving all of my armies together just to give you an idea of what we've got to work with, and okay, it's not a huge amount. And to compound that, we don't have very much in terms of recruitment of units at the start of the game. Pontic Light Cavalry will probably be able to do the job, and certainly this army with the Pontic Heavy Cav can easily defeat most of these early game units. But do bear in mind that you'll want to be prioritising in these cities, building up some of your military infrastructure. Notably, the blacksmith is a very quick way of getting some scythe chariots on the field, and they can go a long way to scything your enemies to pieces. As you move westward towards Ancillaries, do note that this particular town does have some chunky infantry, good experience on them. You want to be just a little bit careful. Of course, one of the key things you can do in this part of the world is hire up some excellent mercenaries. So once you've got these two towns occupied, yes, look out for the likes of the Cretan archers. As you move towards the west part here of Asia Minor, you certainly want to be picking those up. In the early game, they're really going to make a big difference to the kind of armies that you can field. With military infrastructure underway, at this point you can consider who you're going to go and punch in the face. You could obviously go for Armenia. On this occasion I made them my allies, at least until I have taken over this part of the world. If you've seen my live stream series for this campaign, I very much decided it was best to get all of this under my control before I moved on to slightly bigger things. Pergamum is an excellent choice. The Greeks are pretty split up, to be honest, and you can just pick them off one by one. So Pergamum and then Rhodes, that will start to give you an excellent economy, and we can circle back in on the Seleucids to go and grab Tarsus and Sardis. With Tarsus under our control, we now have much of modern day Turkey and canonically what I see as the Pontic territory. Now from here you really need to be making up your mind on whether you're going to go east and finish off the likes of the Egyptians, who will have inevitably backstabbed you pretty much by this stage. You can see it's about to happen right about now. Or if you really want to be a bit ballsy, you can start heading over to Greece and get involved with the Romans. I've decided to ally with them on this particular occasion, but yeah, they will inevitably backstab me too. And that's kind of the reason why I would suggest go east. Go and explore, have fun, beat up the Egyptians, and once you've got all of this, you're going to have an immensely powerful empire, you're going to be rich. To be honest, at this stage, the money's pretty darn good. I don't even really need to worry about it. I can invest in my cities at this point and start pumping out the armies that I need. And as your infrastructure gets better, you will have a better chance of taking on the Romans. Your early army isn't spectacular, but there are some good units as you start to move up the tech tree. So I would say your best strategy would be to head east, defeat all of this before punching the Romans, because yeah, that war is going to be a big one, and you really don't want the Egyptians and any other strong eastern factions in your rear causing you a two-front war. Take this for example. On this particular occasion, I went a few years down the road, took over southern Greece, and yeah, everyone pretty much is now at war with me. The Romans haven't done it yet, but it's pretty darn inevitable now that we have ourselves a land border. I now have to deal with the fact that the Greeks and the Macedonians are attacking me up in this part of the world, but also that, yeah, Egypt are just piling on in. Parthia were thinking about it as well. And yeah, you don't want to leave yourself open on too many fronts, unless, of course, you like to play the game as difficult as possible. If you want to go full total war, absolutely do. But if you, yeah, want to hear what my actual guidance would be, my advice would be to head east and take care of this whole problem before you get involved with the Romans. Staying over on this side does mean that you can delay yourself from getting involved in that war for a fair amount of time. And if you can do that, then you can take care of one faction and then swing over back to the west and deal with the Romans. As for the family tree, of course our faction leader is Mithridates no less, and he has himself some interesting retinue, the kind that you really want to be passing on. Chief eunuch +2 to personal security and a bit of extra valour for your general's bodyguard. You want to be keeping that one alive as much as possible. Along with the age of retainer, yeah, you can really make sure your generals are not being assassinated with these two. He is intelligent and devout as well, which are some nice traits to be passed down, but of course he's already had his children who have both inherited sharp. You can see food taster here, even more chance of detecting and foiling assassination attempts. Very nice to have. Bit of an agent training cost deduction on this guy as well. Bear that in mind. Try and place that well if you want to min-max all of your purchases. And looking at that, skilled cavalry commander, you want to be building that trait up if at all possible. You will be using plenty of cavalry. As for Heracles over here, he is very much the management kind of guy, with sharp as well, but also a mathematician, +3 to management and bonus on trade income, and a couple nice retinue to go along with it. The other thing I'd probably point out is that Spartacus over here is 15. He's about to come of age. You're going to need him because you probably will have 4 cities within a few turns. And after that, well, it's going to be a few years. This girl is going to take a few years to be married. You've got a 9-year-old girl and a few boys who are, 10, 6 and 1. So a fair few turns down the line. Bear that in mind. Get Spartacus married nice and quick if you can. And of course, any adoptions you might want to think quite carefully about, because if you're going to be expanding quickly, there isn't necessarily a huge amount of new blood coming through. As for temples, the Pontics have a decent if unspectacular selection. The awesome Temple of Zeus gives 20% to happiness and to law. Notably, none of the 3 have any pantheon from the huge city, which is a bit of a shame, certainly a negative mark, but this temple is going to be helpful as you expand and get a sprawling empire. You sometimes just need to get the public order under control, and this will certainly do that. We'll come back to the ancillaries as well, because ancillaries can make a big difference, and there are some good ones to be had here. The Temple of Aphrodite is an interesting one, because I would probably never build the large city version of this temple. It is actually quite useful at the early stage of the game though. Population growth bonuses are very nice to have. You certainly want to be getting your cities out ASAP. But yeah, basically by the time you are a minor city, you're probably going to be demolishing it and changing it around. And that really brings us on to, yes, the temple that you're pretty much always going to be picking, the awesome Temple of Hercules. Now, this one, it obviously starts off slow, only at the 5% happiness there. But as you gain experience from this temple, oh yes, you are pretty much always going to be using this. There will be some odd exceptions, certainly with Aphrodite in the short term, and certainly with Zeus with particularly difficult settlements. But Hercules, it's so hard to deny that experience boost. It is just magnificent. The ancillaries are well worth considering, with the Temple of Zeus giving you not only the Priest of Zeus for influence, management and command when defending walls, but also a Freeman Clerk for extra management and a 10% bonus on all trade income. These add up very quickly indeed, and if you want a management kind of guy in charge of your city, well, the Temple of Zeus is going to boost that even more. Whilst the Temple of Aphrodite has limited use as you get through the game, the ancillary is pretty darn good. The Priest of Aphrodite, as you can see here, adds management and discount to agent training costs and some public health boost. Whilst the Priest of Hercules will be your most frequently chosen temple, the Priest itself is probably the weakest of the 3. +2 command when attacking is a nice to have, but it's not going to change your world that much, although the rest is pretty nice to have. +1 influence, always great, and the extra personal security, you know what, that doesn't go amiss either. If we take a closer look at the building browser, you'll see that obviously as an Eastern/Greek faction, the Pontics do have access to huge cities and the epic stone walls, but often don't actually have buildings for all of these slots. That's not necessarily though a bad thing. It means that their best units, the likes of the Bronze Shield or the Cappadocian Cavalry, can all be attained outside of huge cities. But that does have some costs as well. Whilst they have the bazaar and they do have the foundry, if we look at the roads for example, this really does get painful as you start moving through the game. Nonetheless, they can get the Ludus Magna, they do have the secret police network, and the Silk Road is always very nice to have. Overall, the Pontics have a safe starting position with great expansion options, a strong economy, particularly once you have Asia Minor under your control. Avoiding war with too many different factions may be of key concern, but your homeland is certainly a solid base to launch from. Solid enough units will serve you well as long as you utilise their strength in cavalry and chariots, and some added strength from the Temple of Heracles can certainly help you on this most fun of campaigns. Let's consider some of the roleplay opportunities for Pontus. One that jumps to mind immediately is that of the Black Sea Empire. Now, the short campaign does compel you to take Thrace and Armenia, the form of which does seem a little bit wild for a Pontic short campaign. But as we'll see in the next section on Pontus's historical fate, Pontus did spread around the Black Sea, and completing this mission strikes me as a fun and chaotic aim. Chaotic because it does necessitate you attacking Scythia, Armenia and Thrace, and good luck on avoiding any other wars in the meantime. Another goal could be to embrace your Persian heritage by expelling the old Persian Empire of its Macedonian invaders, ally with Armenia and Parthia, and go take on Egypt, the Seleucids and the Greek cities, and bring the world back to its Persian rulers. Before we finish, we should consider the historical fate for Pontus. Now they would actually expand towards Galatia and Bithynia, but they would be beaten back by Pergamum. The Romans though would soon take over the western half of Asia Minor, and Pontus would see there was little to gain in the west. Instead they formed a sort of Black Sea Empire. After coming to the aid of the Bosphorans to defeat the Scythians and Sarmatians, they would soon control the eastern Black Sea, with Colchis also falling to the Pontics. With Rome distracted by the social wars, Pontus not only took over Roman Asia Minor, but would also invade the Peloponnese and Attica. This period in the early 1st century BC would prove the height of Pontic power, and short-lived at that. Mithridates was a tenacious adversary, but he would constantly be pushed back by many of the hardest-hitting generals in Rome's illustrious history, first by Sulla and then by Pompey, soon to be Pompey the Great, forcing him to fall back across the Black Sea. After his son's rebellion, he would take his own life. His son, Pharnaces II, would take back Sinope before Julius Caesar delivered the final blow to Pontus, a battle which birthed the classic Veni Vidi Vici, I came, I saw, I conquered. Pontus reached an impressive height, but came up against Rome's finest time and time again, and fell to a common fate, the Romans. Thank you for joining me today on this campaign strategy guide for Pontus. A quick reminder that there will be a battlefield tactics guide accompanying this video a couple weeks after this releases, so do look out for that. Do also comment your favourite strategy, roleplay suggestion or challenge run down below for other players to enjoy. Finally, a big thanks to all my channel members and patrons for supporting this channel. If you want to further support what we do here, then you can follow the links in the description and join the anarchy yourself. For now though, I will leave you. I'm Thomas, this is The Nerdist Human, and this has been a campaign strategy guide for Pontus in Rome Total War. Thank you friends, and tally-ho.
Shoot the flames of death into their eyes. Oh no, we're gonna die! Coward, 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 coward. Stop, sir! You're supposed to die! Run away, run away, run away, run away, run away! Our ballistas can actually shoot our own gates! Okay, let's get on with this battle. Run away.